In May of 2020, FreightWaves Live is headed back to the largest freight market in the Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia. Join FreightWaves for our best event yet, featuring captivating keynote speakers and rapid-fire demos of technology that is sure to take our industry to the next level. This is your opportunity to interact with some of the most innovative leaders as we mark a new decade in transportation. See you in Atlanta May 5th and 6th.
Hello and welcome to this Monday edition of FreightWaves Now. I'm your host Anthony Smith, and coming up we have Luke Falasca talking to the brokers out there. We also have an appearance from Andrew Cox with a shipper update, but first a word from Donny Gilbert with a carrier update brought to you by Powerfleet. Stay tuned.
Thanks for coming to us for your carrier update, sponsored by Powerfleet. First thing I want to jump into today is our outbound tender volumes across the U.S. here. I brought to you a chart today to show us what's going on. In the blue here is our current volumes, where we have 2019 crossing over into 2020, and of course here in the green is 2 years ago when 2018 crossed over into 2019 last year. So what we're looking at right here is we see across the holidays here where it dropped down for the New Year's holiday, and we started out 2020 and it jumped back up here, and what we want to kind of look at is what's going on. We're just above the 2019 start here. We're currently at 97.70, and of course here we expect this to follow this trend though, and that's kind of why I brought here what's happening in the early of 2019 is because we expect our 2020 trend here to kind of trail along. Right now it's just above our 2019, which is I'll take it. I always like the higher. I wish it was a little bit further up, but it's not. So we should follow this little trend here, and of course maybe drop down in the end of middle or towards the end of January, and of course then start picking back up as we enter February. Now looking at what's going on kind of with our rates here, I've brought you our outbound tender rejection, and I've split up into reefer and dry van. Dry van I here have in the blue, and reefer I here have in the red. We'll start off with our dry vans. Here we see the peak season across the Christmas time, and we cut down and kind of drop down, and we've dropped down to 7.27%. Reefer here, we started off very strong and we've dropped down some, but in the past few days, reefer has actually picked back up just a little bit to 15.32%. Now 15.32% is still a very elevated tender rejection rate, especially for a national average. It's letting us know that our spot rates for the reefer right now are a lot higher than our contracted rates at the current time period. So reefer right now, it is, of course, the season where we have our regular goods that are ran on reefer trailers, but also we're adding in right now the Protect from Freeze products. These are products such as maybe your soups, your beverages, and also there's some industrial products that have to be protected as well. Paint is a good example. Paint will freeze and break the cans, so those need to be put in, really they need to be put in a reefer just for the insulating walls as they run across. We've had a lot of cold weather come in, the Pacific Northwest, the Midwest, and the Northeast. So here are areas that have picked up with reefer demand only because we have items that need to be protected from freeze. Now, looking at a different scenario here, I brought to you a tree map here, and this is of our dry van tender rejection rates. And what we're looking at is we're looking at the change in dry van tender rejection rates over a 1 week period. So here we're looking at last week versus this week. And the scenario that I want to bring out is if you're a carrier and you're leaving a market, but here your shipper has given you the option of maybe 4 or 5 different loads to several different markets here, 4 or 5 different markets. You know, which one do you choose? And a tree map is a good map. This really 1 week change is a good map to choose to let you know which direction the markets are going. So right now we see a lot of red. This is a lot of markets that are dropping down, but we do see a few that are in green here. We got a couple from Wisconsin. Of course, we got South Dakota, which is a very small market, but you can see here Amarillo, Texas, Louisville, Kentucky, San Diego, even Ontario, California. These are markets that are picking up. Now you can really go here and you can click on a market. I clicked on Green Bay, Wisconsin. You can click straight here on your tree map and you can bring up a chart to let you know what is going on in this market. Of course, in Green Bay, we saw it fall down, the tender rejection rates, and here is last week, and here it picked back up to 14.93%. Now, in the past few days, it's been trending downward, but this is a good way that you can jump in and see what's going on and kind of help pick out which markets you want to send your trucks to. Again, same thing for the reefer. You can bring a reefer tree map up as well. 1 week change in outbound tender reefer rejection. This map's a little bit different. It's got a lot more green for what I told you about the demand for reefers currently.
The comprehensive logistics offerings from PowerFleet cover in-cab ELD, fleet management, trailer tracking, cargo monitoring, and tracking other assets such as chassis and intermodal containers. Power up your operations with PowerFleet.
Hi everyone, I'm Luke and I'm bringing you another broker update. Let's go ahead and take a look here. So we've got this chart behind us, okay? In the blue, we have our outbound tender rejection, something we've been taking a look at a lot recently. We saw that massive spike around the holidays and we've been continuous sliding, but it looks like we're beginning to find a little bit of a floor. If you see over here, we've started to kind of level off a little bit. That's a good sign. That means we're starting to find our floor. Is this the floor? Will it go down further? We're not really sure. That's something we'll have to continue to keep an eye on. But it also looks like the volume levels have also found the floor. If you look at that green line there, we've started to, we've recovered pretty much from the holidays. Of course, we'd like to see that volume level continue to go up further and further. But if you look over here on the index scale, we're sitting at right about just under 9,800. Of course, I like to see that number go up further, but you know, we'll take a little bit of growth as we can. So we'll see if that number continues to stay flat. You'll probably see rejections remain level as well. We'll see what happens as we continue to go into this new freight season here in 2020. Ultimately, we'll just have to figure it out as it goes. That being said, let's take a look. We've got a brand new map for you guys today, or call map or money map as I like to call it. So what you guys are looking at here behind us is our outbound volume volatility. Okay, so this is representing the change, the 7-day change in outbound volume. So the green markets are going to be your money markets. Those are the markets you're going to want to focus your sales calls on for today. Those are markets that are experiencing significant growth over the last 7 days in outbound volume, meaning shippers have more freight to move. All right, and the red markets are the opposite, right? Those are contracting markets. Over the last 7 days, they have seen contracting or declining volume, meaning shippers aren't shipping as much out of there. Now, if we just looked at the last chart where volume levels were level, right? We want to see markets that are growing. While the overall U.S. market is remaining level, we want to find the markets that are growing. And this map here does that. So you're going to want to focus on those green markets we've got here. In the Pacific side of the United States, here in California, Oregon, also it looks like Salt Lake City is seeing a lot of growth. Down here in the border area of Texas, El Paso, Laredo, those areas, as well here in kind of some of the central area of the country. It looks like Tennessee, a little bit in Georgia, South Carolina, New York area. So you're going to see some areas. So those are some areas you're going to want to focus your sales codes on for today. Call those shippers up. See if they have some extra freight, especially if you have customers in those areas, okay? This is a really important time around, you know, as we go into this new year to build those relationships with your shippers, get a larger piece of their pie to move their freight, build those relationships, and hopefully have a good first quarter. All right, we're going to be taking a look today at the Salt Lake City market. So we saw that there was volume growth. Now this chart right here in blue represents the dry van tender rejections. All right, so we've seen us level off here over the last week, sitting just under 9%. And that's good. That's a higher floor than where the national average is, about 7.5%. This orange line is the reefer outbound at tender rejection. So you see over here, they're sitting at right about 28%, just under. So we've seen a similar rise and fall for both of them. Now, if we're going to switch charts here too, and we're going to take a look at the volume levels in both of these areas. So if you look at this chart here to my left, you'll see that this represents the blue and the green here are the volume levels for both reefer and dry van. Interestingly enough, you don't typically think of this time of year as being a reefer season, but there is some freeze protect that has to happen. And you'll see volume levels are almost even for both. You see about 82 on the index scale for dry van, that's in blue. And then this green line here sitting about 72, that is the volume scale for reefer. So if you're moving any freight out of Salt Lake City, both reefer and driving, there's a lot of opportunity there. So go ahead and get your freight. I'm Luke, and that'll do it for your broker update today.
Voices from every corner of the supply chain concerning all modes of transportation. From the world's largest logistics podcast network, this is what the freight tech revolution sounds like. Freightcast presented by FreightWaves. Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome to your Shipper Update. I'm here with Andrew Cox. Andrew, what do you have for us today?
Today, Anthony, we're talking about the job openings in manufacturing and kind of this ill-timed talent war going on in manufacturing sector. So right now we have nearly 500,000 open vacant jobs in manufacturing. This is the highest it's been in nearly 2 decades.
Okay.
So what the companies, a lot of shippers and manufacturers are having to do is they're having to offer relocation costs, one-time bonuses, and a lot of extra wages and benefits to try to attract workers to their factories.
Gotcha. And so there's a lot going on with manufacturing, right? So last week we spoke about the ISM,
right?
A lot of contraction there. I think it was, what, the 5th consecutive month of decline?
5th consecutive.
We saw that the components of manufacturing also weren't faring too well either. There was the new orders component that was also in that contractionary status, and also the backlog of orders. So really showing us what we expect to be a weak first quarter and really first half of 2020 for manufacturing.
Definitely. That's what kind of makes this talent war a bit ill-timed. Like we have the ISM at 47.2, the lowest it's been since the Great Recession.
Yeah.
We've also had the jobs report that came out last week that manufacturing actually shed 12,000 jobs in December. So with those components happening at the same time as manufacturers and shippers having to raise wages and having to pay even up to like $5,000 in some cases. I've seen Caterpillar is offering up to $5,000 to move only 75 miles, and Raytheon is offering $5,000 to move to a $17 per hour job. So they're offering, even for hourly wages jobs, they're offering up to $5,000 to move. So it's just ill-timed for them to have to be really spending this extra money to attract talent at a time when manufacturing is slowing on the back of global economic slowdown and U.S. manufacturing recession.
Right, and one of the things we're looking at manufacturing, when I'm looking at the trends, it's very similar to that 2016 timeframe, as many of you know, as the last really freight recession. And so really what we see is when there's a lack in manufacturing, and especially when we look at components that have tangible results like industrial production, that really takes a toll on movement of freight that typically carry these goods throughout the country.
Yeah, it certainly does. And we're seeing the same thing right now. It's a lot like that 2016 date as well.
Right.
Go ahead.
And so when we're looking at manufacturing, as it finds its footing throughout the rest of the year, even when we get back to those maybe levels that we were in 2018 or 2017, do you expect that employment will still be an issue here?
Yeah, I think there's a couple trends that are happening. One, you have an aging population, an aging work population. So a lot of these boomers are going to be leaving the market the next decade, so you're going to have to replace them. So you're going to have another issue there. And then second, a lot of these manufacturing jobs, you're having to have much higher skills. Pardon me. Higher skills. They're having to have engineering skills and technical skills that manufacturing jobs of the past didn't have. So those are going to require higher wages moving forward. So yes, I do think that employment in manufacturing in the factories is going to be difficult for the next decade, not only because of an aging population, but because of higher skills that are coming through.
Got you. And then a lot more pressure for, I think, high schoolers going to college to pursue those avenues as opposed to picking up a skill or a trade or things like that.
Yeah, certainly. I think, there's a lot of people talking that college may not be as important as it was in years past, and that's because they're having to learn skills outside of college, which will certainly be a trend moving forward, that high schoolers will not so much go to college, but they'll go and learn a trade skill or a technical skill that they can use in a manufacturing environment.
Excellent. So it sounds like a lot of uphill battles, especially in the first half of 2020, and a few more to come throughout in the few upcoming years.
Yeah, certainly.
Andrew, thank you so much for that manufacturing and that shipper update, and thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of FreightWaves Now. The content doesn't stop here. We're always posting nonstop around the clock on all your favorite social media platforms. We also have our FreightWaves TV app, which is available on all your favorite streaming platforms as well, including Apple TV. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode.
In May of 2020, FreightWaves Live is headed back to the largest freight market in the Southeast, Atlanta, Georgia. Join FreightWaves for our best event yet, featuring captivating keynote speakers and rapid-fire demos of technology that is sure to take our industry to the next level. This is your opportunity to interact with some of the most innovative leaders as we mark a new decade in transportation. See you in Atlanta May 5th and 6th.